Good morning, everybody. Here we go again. But before we get into today's episode, let's talk about the brand that makes this podcast possible. That's right. It's Black Rifle Coffee. Let's head to their website. Normally, I go through the rotating banner, which I'll start off with. It's the 22-count rounds. You can add those to the Coffee Club subscription. If you're not familiar with that, you can see them in the upper right-hand side. They're kind of like Keurig, essentially. I think that's a brand name, though, as opposed to a specific product, but that's what they go in. I was going to go through the website, but up here on the click here button, supporting veteran causes with every cup, see how, this is way more important to me. This is why I like Black Rifle Coffee. Year to date, they have donated 17,131 bags of coffee. They have made $50,000 in large donations and $364,746 in monetary donations through the BRCC philanthropic endeavors, veteran LEO fire and conservation efforts, and their donation pathways. This is just year to date. It's going to continue to get bigger and bigger. That's what I like about the brand as much, if not more, than their coffee. In addition to, of course, the founders. And the normal website is everything that I've already talked to you about many times. Again, these logo diner mugs, they're pretty bomb. They're pretty badass. They're fire, as my daughter would say. Not exactly sure what that means, but that's what she says. In addition to other words that I have to look up on either Google or Urban Dictionary. But that's a story for a different day. Episode 325 is with my friend Josh Smith. He's been on the podcast a few times. He is the founder of Montana Knife Company. Crazy story of how he got there. The growth of Montana Knife Company has been unbelievable. And I didn't realize I had met him kind of right at the beginning of that, as he had just founded it. And it's amazing to watch. And what a journey from somebody who was working as a lineman, servicing the power lines here in Montana, and made the decision to start something on his own here in the United States. I think he has over 50 employees now. They're based down in Frenchtown, Montana. They're getting ready to move their HQ, and by that, like by getting ready, I mean a multi-year process. Sorry, Josh, that's how long it's going to take to build a new HQ on the outskirts of Missoula, which makes it a few minutes closer to where I'm sitting right now. But it's cool to see him fully dive back in and dedicate himself into an American-made brand. Again, bringing manufacturing back to the United States, putting people to work from our local area, or bringing people in and making them part of our local area. Their products are pretty legit. I have one in my fanny pack. The Mini Speed Goat is my go-to, and by that I'm not knife fighting with it. I open a lot of packages with it. What they're getting ready to come out with this week, though, it's the return of their cutlery set. If you don't have one, it's okay, because they're almost impossible to get. But this Thursday, this episode's coming out on Monday the 13th, so what would that be? 14th, 15th, 16th. The 16th. Yeah, the 16th. They're dropping their they're re-releasing their culinary set. And if you're lucky enough to get one, then good on you, because they'll be gone really fast. How about I shut up? Let's talk about knives and the growth of Montana Knife Company, what they got going on, how they got to where they are, and what they have going on next. Episode 325 with the man himself, Josh Smith.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
I set up the whole podcast because it was like a morning and Henry wasn't around, so I set it all up, hit the record on everything, as it turns out, except for Tristan's camera. So we have audio. And just me on camera.
I mean, we don't have enough footage on these cards for me to describe to you the mistakes that I have made. I have, oh shit, I've plugged in completely full SSD drives so the camera shuts off. Like red light is still on, but the camera is just like not recording shit.
Yeah.
I have like the microphones on the cameras, which I have not plugged in. They've run out of battery power. Power has gone out. I forgot to plug them in so the camera dies halfway through an episode. Audio settings wrong. I mean, you name it. I've really explored the space with fucking things up.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and I bring Michael in to rescue me and save me. And
he's worthless from what I've seen.
Dude, as you can tell, I'm double checking his job. He's like, basically, you did everything wrong, so if I do less than that wrong, it's a step in the right direction. And I don't actually have a good argument.
Joe has young Jamie, and you have worthless Michael.
Young Jamie has gray hair, and a lot of it. Yeah. He's not that young.
Yeah.
I think he's in his 40s. He has a beautiful young Frenchie puppy.
I saw the picture of that little pup. It actually made me think of you guys when you brought the Frenchies down.
Well, I put the deposit in today on a dog. I finally found the dog. If you were to think of a dog for me, what would you think of? Let's play a guessing game.
Show poodle.
No.
No.
Not far off, though.
Oh, God. I mean, you should get a lab so we can go bird hunting together.
I do. I grew up around labs. My father still has one. One of the sweetest, mildest tempered dogs ever. I love the personality of labs, like the block face, too. But no.
I like a dog that actually can do something for you at some point besides have to shovel their shit.
This one
out of the yard
is going to be an attack dog, an alert dog. I don't know if any of that's true. Those are my hopes, though. This is what I tell Leah.
Wiener dog? Attack wiener dog?
It is a wiener dog. It is a mini... Is it Dachshund or...
Dachshund.
Dachshund?
You did get a Dachshund?
I put a deposit in on one.
No shit. A mini?
A mini dapple short hair.
They are adorable.
I had one that I lost in a divorce that I miss daily. His name is Chachi.
Yeah?
I still get to see him. He still pees on me every time he sees me, so our connection is still tight. This one, I was telling Leah I wanted to call it Sidewinder. And she was like, that's horrible. And then I said, well, what about Javelin? She goes, that's fine.
Yeah, Javelin's good. Old Jav.
So it's going to, Javi. This is going to be his nickname. Javi, yeah. So
Javi the wiener dog. So I grew up with a wiener dog.
They're amazing.
Yeah, so we had a standard size. He was actually big. And had we known how rare...
I love the term big wiener dog.
Big wiener,
It's like a 13-pounder.
Yeah.
It's like a big trout.
He was... like this big, beautiful wiener dog.
Yeah.
And he was awesome. Willie was his name. Chased squirrels. His whole life was spent chasing squirrels. And
did you ever get one?
I don't think so.
They're not that fast.
No. But he would sit and stare. He would sit under a tree and stare. I mean, they're a hound. He would sit under a tree and stare at a squirrel for 12 hours. I mean, just stare at it and dig holes like you can't believe. But the personality...
they're amazing. So my daughter has
awesome. They're just a pain in the ass to potty train.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you're going to remember it shortly.
So Chachi, short hair, all brown.
Those dapples are cool.
They are cool. It took me a while to find one. What I told Leah was, he's going to find me. And when he does, we know the time is right. So the deposit got sent today. And... by him finding me just means I spent a lot of time on internet finding him.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I'm stoked. I can pick him up June 21st. But my daughter, I was away on a trip, and I come home, and my daughter has this. I mean, he was young, super tiny. And at first I was thinking, I don't know how, because we had a Rottweiler and a golden retriever, and then this little string bee. And I'm like, I don't know about this. That fucking dog is my absolute favorite. They're like loving, like you said, the personalities are unbelievable.
Yep.
And I'm going to travel with him everywhere. I've decided.
He would lay upside down by the fireplace all winter. Just the fun. They're just funny. And 2 or 3 different times, Willie had his ass stomped by deer because he'd be out sniffing around out in the woods, and it was like fawn season, like now. And all of a sudden, you'd hear him yelping, and he would get run back to the house. My mom one time probably saved his life. He had a doe, had him pinned down, was stomping the shit out of him.
Yeah.
But you know the history about him as far as like hunting with him?
Yeah, they were bred to hunt lions.
Go down.
That's what I tell
to
them.
go down badger holes and pull badgers out by the nose.
Yeah, they're a regal beast.
How badass would that be to go hunt badger with your wiener dog?
As a wiener dog or somebody hunting the badger using the wiener to pull
Definitely as the guy with the wiener dog, not the actual wiener dog.
No, because they're going to take heavies in that cave. That's going to be a rough frontal assault. And I don't know if anybody's ever Googled a picture of a badger and what they have on their hands.
Yeah, they're deadly.
They are deadly, and they will rip your face off.
Ranella asked in a deal we were at the other night, this public deal, they asked, would you rather be attacked by a badger or a mule deer? And
mule deer.
Everybody said they would rather be attacked by a badger. They're more scared of a mule deer. And I'm like, dude, I was trapped one time in a barrel by a badger with my buddy when we were like 9 for like 4 hours in his grain shed.
Was it like circling you?
Yeah, he just wouldn't leave. He was in the building, and anytime I don't know if he was rabid, I don't know what the deal was, but like he would just chase us back into the barrel. It was, dude, the claws on those things are. If you had one of those get a hold of you, it would not be fun.
Well, fortunately, we have Heavy. He can keep everybody away. I need to now go get. I need to find a doctor that can create for me a letter that says, without a mini Dachshund, my post-traumatic stress will run unchecked.
Yeah, you need
I think if you get an emotional support letter, I don't think anybody can tell you no about them.
Yeah, that's what I've been noticing. Yeah, more and more big dogs on planes.
No, I'm going to do Baby Bjorn. He's always going to be up front, just kind of checking shit out.
You should jump. You should get him his own little baby parachute.
He can just jump with mine. Mine would hold him and I.
Well, no, but he needs, like, just to let him float by himself.
I don't know how you would teach him how to really control that.
You know, it's funny. You would hit the ground and he would arrive 10 minutes later.
Probably. I figured just Baby Bjorn him on my normal rig and we'll be fine.
Yeah. That would be an adorable picture. He needs some goggles, though.
Already have researched goggles and ear protection, so we're going to be fine. Because I have plans with this dog. I'm going to make him a little nest here maybe over by Michael.
Well, like that little dog that they've got down there at Black Rifle, that little tactical Taz or whatever that dog is, we'll get him like a little mini speed goat first, little holster for his little vest.
I like it.
Tactical eyes.
I haven't looked at the vests yet, but we can probably do well. Yeah, I figured during podcasts, Michael can put like some peanut butter on his balls and just like, that way you're involved in the process too.
I love this job even more.
What do you think about like an intricate little like multi-tiered apartment setup so he can like climb up? He'll be at the top of the height of the ladder, so he'll actually be lording down upon us.
Maybe like gopher setup
Yeah.
with tubes and stuff.
You know what's going to happen is he's just going to take a big shit right over there in the middle of a podcast, and Michael's going to be over there having to scrub it up.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. I mean, hopefully you can do that job. So what's going on? Your panties were all in a twist when we were texting. You were freaking out.
I was freaking out about what?
I don't know. You said you wanted to talk about something.
Just busy. It's just been wild.
Who are you getting sued by today?
Yeah. we are getting sued, which is exciting. I think it actually is kind of exciting. It means we're apparently a threat. We're becoming somebody.
Is it a good sign?
I don't know. I think it
would depend on why.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Benchmade Knife Company as soon as, which honestly super unfortunate because I actually knew the original founder, Les Diasis of Benchmade. You know, he was actually really nice to me when I was a kid over in the Eugene, Oregon knife show. Mm-hmm. That was kind of when Benchmade was just he was just starting it really in his garage. And honestly, that company is kind of it's an inspiration, I guess, or an example of what you can build over 30 years, American-made knife company.
It's easy to confuse a brand for the people inside of it, too. You know, like Benchmade, I mean, although I'm sure that's what it says on the document, I feel like there's somebody inside of Benchmade that is making that decision. You know what I mean? The guy on the floor sharpening the knives isn't really suing you. Somebody in there, though.
Yeah.
What'd you do? What IP did you steal? Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, we stole lots of stuff from him. No, I
actually feel like in the world of knives, it would be really hard at some point to not have an IP issue. I mean, it's a bladed-edged weapon tool.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me if something came up where, I mean, let's face it, there's only so many shapes
That's what I'm saying.
in a 4-inch hunting knife blade that you can make before pretty much everything's been made. So it wouldn't surprise me if you designed something, came out with it, and then found out down the road, like, oh, this thing looks identical, and you happen to call it the same thing too. But the case with this is we just interviewed one of their employees for a job, just gave him a job interview. Actually was he had said that he had a non-compete, and so we actually called an Oregon attorney to ask how to go about interviewing him to stay out of this kind of a situation in advance. And he came out, interviewed, offered him a job, sent him a job offer letter, and actually acknowledged his non-compete in the offer letter.
What does that mean? Saying like you get a job offer, but you have to ride out the non-compete?
Yeah, basically saying, hey, we understand you have a non-compete, so before you accept this job and come to work here, like before you actually arrive to work here, you have to bring us a letter, and we said this in the offer letter, you have to bring a letter from Benchmade Legal saying when you're allowed to start. Like, when is your non-compete satisfied? And there's a bunch of stuff that's actually interesting. This became kind of a national, not this issue, but the non-competes overall became a national story.
I just saw this
just last week.
They were struck down largely
by the FTC. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
was it a blanket, or was there carve-outs for that?
There's little tiny carve-outs for like executive level positions.
Okay, like C-suite?
Yes, but and very small and very targeted. And this guy wouldn't really meet that that carve out. But before all that happened, he was under a certain length of a non-compete, like for 2 years. But Oregon law a few years ago changed, and they struck down anything longer than a year.
Okay.
So pretty much the standard's been in Oregon 1 year non-compete. So we understood, like, we're going to offer him this job, but he probably won't come to work here for a year. So in December, we interviewed him, end of December. We sent him an offer letter a couple days later. The next week, he went in and actually told his direct superior, hey, I'm going to be leaving, going to Montana Knife Company, but keep it under wraps because I need to go find another job in case they enforce my non-compete. I need to find work before they just freak out and I lose my job. Mm-hmm. So he did. He spent a couple months interviewing with other places. He's an engineer, so he found some job, I don't know, making boats or doing something in Oregon. Mm-hmm. And once he secured that job offer, he went in and turned in his resignation and actually hoped that he'd stay on maybe the next 6 months and they'd split the difference. Like, hey, I'll stay on 6 months and help you transition, maybe cut 6 months off of my deal. Well, instead, they escorted him straight out of the building and didn't say anything to him for a couple weeks, and then called him into a off-site room with no attorney, no HR, no nothing, and threatened him with a lawsuit that if he didn't sign a 4-year non-compete, they were going to sue him. And, oh, by the way, we already sued Montana Knife Company. They just don't know it yet. So, of course, he didn't sign anything. He walks out of that, calls me, and he's like, dude, you're getting sued. I'm like, what are you talking about? And
sure enough, poaching?
They called it like tortious interference of a contract or whatever the hell. And they put a bunch of stuff in there that was BS. And what's funny about it is like I was sued the next day, or served, which I had knives ready and gave the guys that served us knives. They were big fans, gave them a tour of the shop. It was a good time. But
for them.
For them. Yeah, for them. I honestly wasn't worried about it because I knew we hadn't done anything wrong. We'd followed legal advice. We offered him a job. I actually found it a little bit funny, though. It's unfortunate. But what they didn't ever do was send a letter saying, hey, you should stop doing this, or what are you doing? Or they never tried to reach out. They said nothing over that couple weeks, and then they just sued us. And judges generally don't look too kindly upon that. They want to see you actually make some kind of an attempt to reach out and stop whatever it is somebody's doing.
Stop it at the lowest
level.
And
that's where, frankly, I see this as more of I think we're becoming a threat just because of our growth. We're having an effect. And I think they have a history of suing people. I'll say that. And I think they think that, hey, this is a small knife company and this dude's horse pasture in Montana. We're going to sue him and scare the shit out of him, and they're not going to pursue this guy, and they'll just back away. And my attitude is, fuck off. Like, we're gonna shoot. We're gonna hit back.
Yeah.
It's absolute bullshit. And so here's what's funny is, we went a little while, and they kept pushing this guy to sign a non-compete, and sign, and they were threatening him and doing a bunch of stuff. And so we hit him back with a letter explaining all these reasons why they were basically full of shit. And a little bit later, they turned around and dropped the lawsuit against us. But they kept going after him because here's this guy. He's an employee. He's scared as hell to have hundreds of $1,000s in legal fees. Big companies threatening to sue him, threatening to ruin his career. And then that kind of took us out of it, where our hands are tied. We can't do anything because now they're not suing us anymore, but they kept after him. And so we actually, last week, we turned around and filed claims back against them to have their attorneys actually sanctioned.
So how's this guy doing right now?
Not great. I mean...
So he's obviously out of work there.
He's out of work there. He's, sitting there with attorneys' bills built up. He's now out of the industry making half the money that he was. He has no date as to when he can come work for us yet.
The old non-compete is not valid?
No, he ended up basically at this point he ended up signing a deal that just said like he'll honor his old non-compete. That was like their negotiation with Benchmade.
Was he in that room by himself?
Yep.
Why do people do that?
I don't know. Well, here's why. He's
like,
a super...
Have you ever been read your rights?
No.
God, you live the most boring fucking life ever, dude. Anytime somebody tells me that I have the right to have an attorney present, I'm like, sweet, let's do that.
Yeah, let's have that. Well,
are you sure you don't want to talk?
Here's
Pretty fucking
the thing.
sure. You open the conversation with my Miranda rights.
Yeah. This is what's really unfortunate is actually it's the part about him. We're going to be fine. Like we're doing fine. We're doing great.
Yeah.
The problem is you have a huge corporation suing this guy and, you know, it scares the hell out of him. And in regards to have an attorney present, they message him and say, hey, come meet. So I'm going to keep names out of it. But these two people, which he's worked with for 15 years and actually has a good relationship with, come meet us at this office to talk. He didn't realize they were coming to threaten him with a lawsuit. He thought they were actually going to like, hey, I've been working together, with these two people for 15 years. Like we're just going to have a discussion. And they slide lawsuits across the table.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Unless somebody is physically restraining you to the chair,
yeah,
get up and walk the fuck out.
Yeah, which I think he pretty much ended up doing.
Yeah.
I don't really know what all went on.
That said he would honor his old.
No, he didn't sign that
Okay.
then. No, that he ended up going and getting a lawyer.
Which is the move.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's here's what's so bad about this is this guy has been working for them for 15 years, has probably largely responsible for millions of dollars in revenue to them.
If not more than
Been
that.
dedicated to their family. He has 2 young kids that are just getting ready to be school age. Wants to raise his kids in Montana, not in Portland, because Portland's a shit show. He's a bow hunter, wants to move to a small town in Montana, basically, and raise his kids more rural. Wants to have cows and chickens and do whatever, and help us in our company. Benchmade has been around for 30 years. If we catch Benchmade in the next 10 years, that's Benchmade's fault. They're so far ahead of us, it's ridiculous. And like one of our guys on our board said, it's common to have non-competes like, hey, if you're going to be an executive at McDonald's, you can't go work at Burger King or Wendy's or whatever for the next 2 years. But Benchmade's non-compete said their territory that they're claiming he can't work in is all of the United States and the world.
That's what Michael says too.
Can't go anywhere.
Yeah, you're pretty much
I
in
forged
prison.
his signature for clarity, but he has a non-compete that says that.
Yeah, Michael.
He can't do anything anywhere.
He can't even leave this room, probably. Do you live in, like, behind this curtain, probably?
Yeah, no, he doesn't want to open the curtain. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
No,
get me
it's-
started down that open the curtain pathway. He currently has a sissy rib anyway, so he can't even defend himself.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is like, we're knife makers. We're a knife company. I actually I have so much respect for the knife industry. Like Dan Winkler Knives, for example. I was doing shows at the same time I knew Les Diasis from Benchmade. I knew Dan Winkler. And I've seen Dan and Karen take their custom business all the way up to what it is today. I think it's freaking amazing, and everybody should go buy a Winkler knife.
I think there's enough real estate in probably every business sector for everybody to be okay.
There is. And that's the thing, like whether you have one of our hunting knives, a Benchmade folder, a Winkler Tomahawk, people collect knives and guns. It's a little different than camo, right? Like camo tends to be like a jersey. Once you pick your camo, you kind of tend to
It is very
be that way.
it's very territorial.
It is. Like if you're wearing Kuyu pants and Sika top, people are going to look at you.
You're trash. You're a hobo. Yeah. You're a disgust to the hunting population.
But like with guns, you collect all kinds of brands of guns.
let
I've
alone
never.
the shit you put on the guns, whether it's a Vortex or a Leopold or
Yeah.
what scope rings do you use, what light do you like? It's an absolute shit show of a painting out in front of you.
Yeah, and that's the fun of it is that you get to try different stuff. I've never said don't buy another knife company's knives. I just like you to have one of ours too.
That's fair.
And I would prefer people lean towards American made. Companies like Winkler who are doing stuff in America. I would prefer you lean towards our own country, even if it's not ours.
Is Benchmade not making them in America?
They are. Yep. That's why I say they're a great company. They've been a great company, but the thing is, you actually hit on it earlier. You know, once Les passed away, then his kid took over. He's not a knife maker. It doesn't have an original idea or thought or design. He can't make a freaking knife. He's got money and a pack of lawyers, and I think his mom's still on the board. And I think their way of winning is to just try and leverage their attorneys and their wallet. But that will catch up to them.
I was going to say, that'll work until it won't. And
Right.
like you said, if you catch them, that says more about them.
Right.
Well, I don't want to say it says more about them than it does you guys, because obviously I know you in the kind of the behind the scenes. When we first met, it was literally just the, what would you call it? Workshop? I was going to say shack out by your
It's
house,
pretty much a shack.
which grew into a bigger shack, which is eventually
Yeah.
going to probably grow into a big shack.
Right.
But-
But even if you look at our quote unquote shack today,
Yeah.
it's still an actual shack compared to like what Benchmade's operating
Yeah.
in,
I used
or
to be one of their
Leatherman,
ambassadors, so I got to go walk around there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I'm actually a plant for them. I mean, I'll talk with you later about
Okay,
your
now
new
I see what's
up and coming designs, and which of course I will just send directly to them.
Yeah. Well, they need the help.
No, it was cool seeing their factory. I had never seen large scale production at that point, and then shortly after, I went down and actually saw a Silencer Co. Holy shit! I didn't know what you could do with automation,
Yeah.
like automated welders. I mean, there's a massive amount of hands-on stuff as well.
Yeah.
But just looking around, like, whoa.
And that's where we're so far away. Like, that's why it's kind of insane that they would be so defensive of their territory. They would sue over this. Like, to actually say, like, you know what? Take him. You're so far from catching us. Good luck. Like, that should be their attitude, you know?
I would sue you if I could. I don't know what it would be for, but I would come after you.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah.
And I don't really have any
I look
creative
forward
ideas.
to it.
I don't have any. It would probably be I would say
You and your attack wiener dog.
it would be. I would probably hit you with a sexual assault charge. You came on to me at a urinal, unwanted, of course.
Well, you are strikingly good looking,
don't
and
know
you're a
about
SEAL, so I know you have a history with men.
used to be a SEAL. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no current in that whatsoever. I've put it all down. I'm
Yeah.
past it.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's about wiener dogs and helicopters, I think.
What happens when the blades stop turning?
Are you on the ground or in the air?
You're in the air.
You die.
Okay. Does that make you like nervous at all?
I don't know. I have heard of blades departing from the aircraft, which I think would be similar.
Similar.
I don't know why they would stop. Now, let me be real clear here. I have 2.3 flight hours in a helicopter.
Yeah.
So everything I am about to say is a complete guess.
Yeah.
I have heard of blades departing in flight, in which case the body of the helicopter will have the flight characteristic of a stone.
Of a top.
But I don't know why they would stop. I guess there is a way that they could be, but if the engine fails, they should auto-rotate. You're going to come down,
Right.
and that's part of the learning process. I haven't done 0 of those, but I think that's coming up shortly.
Choppers are so freaking cool. What made you decide to get your chopper license?
So I flew for years and enjoyed it. I was the pilot for CrossFit for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a good amount of experience in that airplane. I was able to get – so the journey for everybody, and you can go as far as you want. You go private pilot first.
Mm-hmm.
You do not have to get an instrument rating. You can be a commercial pilot, which means you can make money for your piloting services. As a private pilot, you can be reimbursed for like the cost of the aircraft if you're going to take family somewhere.
Right.
But you can't do anything for hire. So this commercial pilot – you can get your multi-engine, and you could do the multi-engine before the commercial. So there's a little bit of like choose your own adventure in the aviation world. So
Right.
private, commercial, multi-instrument, and then there's type ratings, which would be jet-specific stuff above a certain amount of weight, and then ATP, which I think stands for Airline Transportation Pilot. So I was able to get all of those, and a couple thousand hours of flight time, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. But I was flying on Greg's dime though too, and Greg's airplane, so I had the ability to stay current, and had put it down. And people have asked me why, and it's not because I wanted to. I was doing charter flying in a Gulfstream and in a Citation. And when you're flying, you make money. When you're not flying, you don't.
Right.
And you wait for the phone to ring, and if it rings, awesome. And if it doesn't, not as awesome.
Right.
And it's not as fun to take people in an awesome jet to like Turks and Caicos for their Thanksgiving.
Right.
While you wait there in a hotel by yourself.
I've got a good friend down there that's a private pilot for a billionaire, and
Yeah.
dude, that guy
So you go.
He
where
never
they
knows
wanna go.
when.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be like, hey, do you guys want to, go to dinner Friday night? And it's like, sure, unless Will gets called like an hour before. I mean, it's literally, or he'll be flying home, and it'll be a situation where they're flying home from like DC, and they're an hour out, and the owner will be like, I want to head down to Cancun, actually, to my yacht, and you just bank left and like, don't know when we're gonna be home. Might be down here a couple weeks.
So the rule I always heard was the bigger the airplane, the bigger the suitcase. And by that, I mean for the crew.
Yeah.
So it was cool, but I mean, you're on somebody else's schedule. And truly, when the phone doesn't ring, you're not making any money. It's not most of those people that like you're talking about. He's probably on salary.
Yeah.
He's going to get his whatever every 2 weeks.
Right.
Charter, it's like, hey, we didn't have any this month. So consider going and fucking yourself and make sure your mortgage pays itself, So that was great. But I put it down and moved on to some other stuff. And it was always fun. And I do like challenging myself and learning new things. I was at an event at Salt Lake City, and at the guy's house, there was an A-Star, which is a helicopter sitting outside. Rewind this. I had gone to Moab with the Fieldcraft and Black Rifle crew, and Pete was out there from Origin. We had an airplane, and then all of a sudden, all of these helicopters showed up. It was like, Diesel Dave, or Heavy D, Sparks. The Muscle brought his helicopter. All of a sudden, there's 4 helicopters down there. And they're like, hey, do you guys want to jump out of our birds? I'm like, rhetorical. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So we go in and jump. And I was Keaton, the guy who goes by The Muscle on Instagram. I hit him up afterwards. I was like, man, that was awesome. Like, great to meet you. I have literally nothing to offer you. But if you ever have an event where you need a speaker, like, hit me up. I'll donate my time.
Right.
So I traded him. He had an event that was coming up. He put me on. I went there before the event. The night before, there was not a VIP, but like a get-together. There's an A-Star, 3 helicopters sitting outside. And he's like, hey, do you want to go for a ride? I'm like, why do people ask me fucking rhetorical questions? Like, yes. I mean, and I have thousands of hours in the backs of helicopters. None of them look like an A-Star. And I'm just sitting there like nodding off until like the 5-minute out. So I'm up in the front left-hand seat, and like the main guy who runs his group, the Muscles group, is up there, and we take off, and we're kind of cruising around. He goes, hey, do you want to fly? I'm like, again, yes. And again, I'm not a helicopter expert, but there is the collective, which is the power, the cyclic, which is forward, back, left, and right, and then the pedals, which is heading control. And so I had 2 of the 3 controls. He was controlling the power. Probably smart. So I'm like buzzing the Mormon Tower down in Salt Lake City. And it's just like, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I remember coming back and I was telling Leah, I'm like, I'm going to learn how to fucking fly a helicopter because that was pretty goddamn cool.
Yeah.
And did a bunch of research, ended up doing a social media post about it to try to figure out options. And there was a bunch in Texas. There's not a lot here in Montana, which probably doesn't shock you. But a buddy I work with, you know him, fucking Nelson, Sheriff Nelson.
Yeah.
He is one of the guys who gets lowered out of the Two Bear Aviation helicopter.
Oh, okay.
The main pilot for that actually does teach helicopter lessons here in Kalispell. Nelson linked me up with that guy, and I was like, fuck it. Let's go see if I can get this done here in Kalispell. Went and linked up with the guy. Did a couple lessons. He's overseas doing some recurrency training. They have another guy there that's going to be able to work with me. So I think I have 6 lessons next week.
How many hours do you need to get your license?
I think the minimum is 40. And I think with anything like that, that means you have just enough knowledge to go fucking kill yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That means in perfect conditions, when everything goes well, you might be okay.
Right. Yeah.
But it kind of just reignited this kind of passion for aviation stuff. And it's a different way to look at it. You don't need a runway.
It's such a cool way to see our country. I mean, these mountains and, a lot of these, like a buddy of mine has a small plane and, he just can't go up in a lot of these draws and canyons, especially in the time when you want to fly, which is summer and it's hot. He doesn't have the lift to pull up out of a small canyon with his plane. He doesn't have the power. That's why I think people love those Super Cubs so much because you can kind of chug into those canyons. But with a helicopter, we used to fly in them a fair amount patrolling power lines when I was a lineman.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
I've actually heard they've switched a lot of that now to drones, autonomous drones.
Oh, I'm sure.
Where how did I get on this? It's like this box. So the distance between me and you, maybe cut it into thirds, and it's about this wide. And they put these box out along the way, and it is completely automated. It's got a little weather station on top. And when it's like every day, the thing opens, there's a drone ready to go, goes on a complete course, probably twice, lands itself back in the fucking box, and they close it up.
Yeah.
Like, we are so close to working for robots.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I've been out of the lineman stuff for 4 years, and this last 4 years, the drone stuff's exploded. So it wouldn't surprise me.
From a cost perspective, there's no way you're going to compete.
No.
Helicopters, let me tell you what now, in my 2.3 hours, are super cheap.
Yeah, and I think
really cheap to run.
What was slowing the yeah, exactly. What was slowing down the drone usage for us was the fact that it's like commercial business. There was like licenses and shit versus just like me and you just owning one.
That's a solvable problem, though.
Yeah, for sure. And they probably have already. But what we used to do is like if we had a transmission line out, say between Missoula and Kerdam up through the mountains coming this way, we would go patrol a bunch of that in pickups, hike a bunch of it. And at a certain point, you just can't find. There's probably a tree in the line. You don't know where it's at. There's canyons and there's a bunch of stuff you can't see or get to. And so we would call Minuteman Aviation down there in Mike Mumzik down in Missoula. And he would just fly out to where we're at, land wherever we're sitting, and like pick us up and we'd fly that line. And I mean, in 10 minutes, you found the tree. And then you can hover around that structure and see like what's broke, what do you need for materials. And a lot of that was hike in, climb the power poles and fix it. So
the first lesson, we take off, we go, and he's flying the helicopter, but like halfway through, he's like, we'll just land in the middle of this riverbank, and sets it down on the rocks. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like when you change your headspace and you can go anywhere. And I'm thinking, okay, I can get my license. I already have thousands of hours of aviation experience. And so the cool thing about the helicopter path that I'll be on towards my license is that the other licenses I have cover me for like the aviation knowledge.
Okay.
So I think it would be a lot harder for
me to get one.
If you had no aviation experience, you would have to be learning how to fly a helicopter and learning aviation knowledge at the same time, and you would get tested on both.
Right.
I can use the aviation knowledge that I have, and I'm just doing an add-on to my existing licenses. And then I look at it like, why would you not go camping in the backcountry?
Yeah.
Why would you not take your friends and go fishing and land in the middle of a goddamn remote riverbank somewhere?
Right.
Like, okay, I like this.
No,
why would I not fly to Frenchtown to get reloaded for knives for the coffee shop? Be like 40 minutes.
Yeah, those knives at the coffee shop are going to cost a little bit more.
Who requested those big, what are those things called, the Bushmasters?
Yeah, our big bushcraft, our marshal. I don't know. Whoever runs,
Gala.
I think probably Gala.
All right.
Yeah. You don't need to
Special
worry
secret
about
order.
it. It's not your problem. It's her problem.
I mean, I have one of those knives. I feel like you could beat somebody to death with it without taking it out of the sheath. I don't even know what you do with a knife that large.
It's true. The helicopter stuff, a funny story about lessons.
Yeah.
We were at this deal when my daughter was young. It was like a auction for 4-H pigs, little pigs, baby pigs. So we're at this auction and we're getting ready to, the kids have to bid on them and whatnot. And Mark Mumzik, the brother of Mike, shows up and his face just all skinned up. Looks like he's been in a street fight. And I go over there. I'm like, dude, who kicked your ass? And he's like, crashed a helicopter yesterday. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, I didn't really know you. Not too many people limp away from helicopter crashes.
I think it depends on how and why it crashes.
Yeah, I think a lot of luck is involved because there's a lot of shit flying around when they do hit the ground. Yeah. But what happened with him is he said the girl stubbed her toes. So what happened was he said the helicopter's parked kind of on the edge of the pad near the grass.
Yeah.
Well, over years, if you've got a sidewalk with a lawn, the grass grows, keeps getting taller and taller. And so pretty soon the grass is sticking up maybe 2 inches of turf. Not just grass, but like heavy turf is sticking up above the asphalt. And he said, I wasn't watching close enough. And she went to take off. And instead of coming up, as she came up, she started to go forward and kind of drug the skids just a little.
That is called a dynamic rollover. I just read that section last night. It is something I'm going to try to avoid.
Yeah, well,
apparently at some point in level of tilting, it can't be stopped anymore, and then you're fucking riding that out.
Yeah, well, he said she had enough momentum going forward when the runners caught the grass. It just nosed up, and the blades hit the ground in front of them, and then shit started flying everywhere. And, they were both all right, but don't do that.
My goal is to not do that or die by burning alive covered in aviation gasoline.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's the other cool thing we did. Those helicopter pilots, like Mike, we would set power poles with them. So we would stage everything, tie ropes to them, and they would fly them into us in the middle of the mountains. We would hand dig holes, and wearing kind of green vests and everything so they can see us. And they would bring those poles in, and he would set those poles down. I'm telling you, a hole that's not you're hand digging it, so you don't want to dig any more than you need to. Your hole's 2 inches bigger than that pole. And you give him all these different signs and whatnot, and he would drop that down through the power lines. I mean, the power lines are dead, but right through the middle of the wires into that hole. And then when he got it to the bottom, we'd give him, the stop sign. He'd have to sit there and hold the pole, and we would untie our ropes, 3 ropes, and you run them off to trees, kind of in a triangle, and you tie them off to a tree, and then you kind of give him the cut loose sign, and he would cut loose and take off.
What kind of helicopter was it?
I don't know, a big one.
Great, that helps.
Yeah, not really sure.
That's really good. What color was it?
It wasn't that big. White. Any white helicopter.
Do you have any other useless information you can share with us that doesn't help answer my question?
All right. Most of everything I say is useless. Any white helicopter works for setting power poles.
All right.
Yeah.
Guy's probably just a nightmare in bed. Just accuracy and precision. Just driving it.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he has 17 kids.
Just hitting the target. Really dry fitting it.
Those guys, though, what's amazing, what you learn is on like a super steep hillside, all that rotor wash is hitting that hillside, and it's blowing wind out away from the hill. And so when that pole's coming down, it's like at an angle from the wind, and he would account for all that.
Here's what I've learned.
Those guys are good.
Here's what I've learned in the book that I've been reading. There are more ways to kill yourself in a helicopter than I am capable of describing.
For sure.
The entire book is essentially like, hey, watch out for this. Don't do that. If this happens, you're dead. If that happens, you might die.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I'm going to replace a lot of stuff in my hunting pack with just a couple shackles and a sling. And if I kill an elk, I'm just going to call you and ask you to long line it out for me.
If you don't think I've already thought myself through these situations.
Yeah.
So here's my goal.
The problem is when you kill an elk, you're on the mountain.
Well, yeah, but why wouldn't I be there? So the restriction is you have to wait 24 hours, right? Which is fair. Aircraft or helicopter.
Right, to hunt. Yep.
To hunt. So you could fly in, and there is an argument actually to accessing some of this public land that is landlocked by private.
Yep.
I think you would piss some people off for sure.
Yep.
But it's not illegal, but you do have to wait 24 hours.
Yeah, state lands. You can't fly into the Bob Marshall Wilderness, any wilderness area. But
you could fly and you can't land.
It's true. You could hop out.
Yeah. No, I've already thought about these things.
And Leah could fly at home.
I asked her if she wanted to learn, and she said she would rather do anything else in life, literally anything else, to include being waterboarded before trying. But my goal is obviously get my license, and then I'm going to get a helicopter somehow. I'm going to figure out how to do it, and then we should probably talk about those scenarios, because why would you not do that if you could?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not that hard. I mean, we long line a ton of stuff in. Long lining it out would be easy, and frankly, some 500-pound paracord would probably work. It might be a little sketchy, but
we could probably find people who know.
Yeah,
because between you and I and Michael, we don't know shit
that
about
pulling
this.
That pulling tape, like that mule tape that they use for pulling in like electric and phone lines. That stuff's 2,000-3,000 pounds test strength. The light stuff.
Yeah,
it weighs nothing.
Let's give it till next year.
Yeah,
I want to get a few hours under my belt.
I've got the plan. I want to be on the ground with my elk and you be in the air. I don't want to be with you in the air.
That's fine.
Makes me a little nervous.
That's
I get
completely
airsick too. In college, I barfed in my buddy's book bag when he was trying to get his pilot's license.
I don't
I'm not
know
a good
if I would.
buddy.
I don't know if I would advocate for going up with somebody taking lessons, because it's going to be the opposite of smooth flight.
Yeah.
Fixed wing or rotary. And if you're just sitting there, like, here's what I found. Turbulence is not that bad if you're the person flying and you're kind of controlling, you know what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's horrendous for passengers that have nothing to do but focus on having their head being rattled around the small cockpit.
Yeah, he called me one day. I was in college in Bozeman, and he's like, hey, I'm trying to get my hours. You want to come fly with me? Small little Cessna, And I was like, I used to get airsick, but I think I'm probably fine now. I'm older. And yeah.
Are you under the impression
on the other side of the Bridger Mountains where we were completely committed, I was like, I'm getting kind of hot.
Yeah.
Opened some windows and pretty soon barfed in his book bag. He never invited me to fly with him again. I'm not sure I understand why. But he actually became a F-15 pilot in the military and did a bunch of their test test flying for like new craft, and pretty cool.
There's worse ways to make a living.
Yeah, I helped him work through adversity in his training, so.
Yeah, you were actually part of that adversity because I'm sure that airplane smelled great.
It was bad.
Yeah, I would have landed immediately and told you to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
How'd
He wasn't impressed. Lee Bauma was his name. He was not impressed with me. I haven't talked to him since, now that I think about it.
Well, there's always today or tomorrow. You could reconnect. How'd your Trump post go over?
Yeah. Yeah, real good.
Why you got to make shit political, man?
You know, we actually try to stay away from politics in general.
Have you seen the post you put up?
Yeah, that one was a little bit political.
No. What would
You
make
know,
it political? Having a president in it? And if
Yeah,
I'm
having the
fucking with you,
president-
I don't care.
And saying that, you know, we hope he gets elected. But your other option's Biden. I question any sanity of anyone, no matter what you think of Trump. We do try to avoid, you know, quite frankly, even on my own stuff, I try to not put up a ton of political stuff because honestly, I just get wore out on it. Like, I don't want to read, I don't give a shit really, frankly, what your opinion is or my friends' opinions are or whatever. Like, go vote. But also, how often, from a knife maker at 11 years old in a little logging town in Montana to growing this company to shaking hands with the former president and handing him knives, that's pretty goddamn cool.
I'm surprised the Secret Service let you hand him knives.
Yeah, I was the only kid in high school and junior high that could bring knives to school, so I kind of I've had a hall pass. I guess it extends to the Secret Service.
You're gonna look.
They were cool.
You're gonna look real dumb though because you engraved 45 and 47 on there. If you're wrong,
I'm not wrong.
I'm just saying if you are.
I mean, even if he doesn't get put in, you know, the election was stolen.
That's unfortunately the narrative that you know would be the issue.
Yeah, no, he was really good. First thing he said when I walked up to him is Mike good a hunter as he says he is? Talking about Junior.
I mean, that's your opportunity to say no.
Yeah, I did say no.
Good.
No, you know, even like, you know, one thing that's really cool that I do respect about Trump, look at the success of his kids, like Eric Trump, Ivanka, Junior, you know, to raise kids as a billionaire in New York City. And I'm sure, like Junior said, a lot of it had to do with his mom. His mom was amazing, I guess. But, you know, Eric Trump will text me photos of, like, he buys old vises, old, like, surface grinders and this equipment, and he'll tear down all the paint off of it and completely refurbish them. He builds guns. He's an amazing gunsmith. And you would never know that looking at Eric Trump. I mean, he kind of looks like a nerd. But
Why do you have to be... Do you really judge people like that? I didn't realize you were so judgy.
I'm very judgy.
Oh, apparently, from what you just said.
I mean, you're either judgy or you don't admit to being judgy.
I take people as they are. I don't try to, like, you just really were breaking the man down and making him sound like shit because he has a hobby he's passionate about.
I think
he found passion
being
in his
a Trump,
passion.
he'll probably be okay. I think he's thick-skinned.
Yeah. You know what, Michael? He doesn't know how to find passion in his passions.
I think Eric Trump will be okay.
I think they're all going to be okay.
Yeah.
I just saw you put that post up. I was like, oh boy, here it comes.
You know, it was one of those, we kind of talked about it. We're like, how many people get to meet a president, hand them knives? It's just kind of a, you know, here's the other cool thing I think about that. Every other person in that room, other than Tim Kennedy, every other person in that room wrote a check to be in it. And I got to be in that room just because I'm a knife maker and I do.
Where were you guys? I actually don't know anything about the setting or where you guys were.
Actually, it was a cool thing. You know, in North Carolina, Sarah Verardo, friend of ours, her husband, Michael Verardo, was wounded in Afghanistan really badly, went through 100 surgeries or whatever, you know, amputated a leg, and ended up, frankly, with kind of the mentality of about a 6-year-old, brain damage wise. And a lot of that actually came, they think, kind of from some of the anesthesia and surgeries. Mm-hmm. And in North Carolina, they put through a Wounded Heroes Day a couple years ago, kind of in honor of Michael Verardo. And so in North Carolina, that weekend was Wounded Heroes Day as a state. Mm. And so I flew out. They were doing a bunch of kind of celebrations around Michael, kind of honoring him and other wounded veterans. And so Trump came to town to kind of honor that. And he also did a fundraiser. And the fundraiser was the part I got to go meet him at. And there were probably 80, 90 people in that room. They ended up raising $6 million that day, a record for one of his fundraisers is what he said. And like I say, I was pretty much a mooch. But the only person that didn't pay to walk in that room. And again, I look at it as kind of, inspirational for other people who are chasing their passions and starting businesses. And if you'd have told me 4 years ago when I was starting MKC that I'd be handing him chef's knives.
Is it only 4 years?
Yeah. Yeah, it's 3.5.
God.
So I look at it a little different. I mean, yes, there's the political side, but there's also just the like.
I knew what you meant from the post, like, look how far we've come. Mm-hmm. When I first saw it, I just chuckled. I was like, oh boy.
And you're going to get lots and lots of hatred. But here's the thing. There's 300 million Americans. If 150 million of them aren't into our stuff, I'm okay with that.
When was the last time you checked your math?
320 million Americans.
Michael? It's like 360.
360?
Yeah.
Well, with all the immigrant people coming in, illegal aliens, it might be more like 400. But
if it were to stay on pace, it would hit that sooner rather than later. But I think we're at 360 on the last census. So I'm closer to being right than you. That's what we need to take from this.
All right. Well, so 107. Hey, my customer base is getting bigger. 170 million Americans.
Many of those are children.
Future customers.
True.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's a growth mindset.
Yeah. But the point is like, I think companies do make a mistake of trying to be everything to everyone. You're just not going to be.
My God. You know what? Who else makes that mistake? Individuals.
Yeah.
You are not capable of pleasing everybody.
Being liked by everybody.
And I think that is something that people struggle with, though.
Yeah.
And I say that because, I struggle with it to a degree, I guess, or I have in the past, because you want to say something, you're like, oh, but if you say that, I'm going to piss somebody off. And you're like, well, okay, well, but what would happen if I said the opposite? I'm going to piss somebody off, too. So you're probably just better off just being yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I was telling a friend of mine, he was like, God, you're getting a ton of hate on that post. And I was like, 50 or 60 maybe comments on there about, fuck you guys, I'll never buy your shit again.
It took me so long to make those accounts.
But
I mean, it was hours.
Yeah. But what I'll say is I told him, but I think there were at that time, now it's probably closer to 20, there was like 18,000 likes on that post. It's like, okay, so am I worried about and there's probably a bunch more that just didn't hit the like button. The thing is like, so there's 50 or 60 people, and I'd argue half those people probably never did buy a knife. They're just either trolls or they're people that, were thinking about it that aren't.
Well, they probably would want to, but it's almost fucking impossible to buy one of your knives. How's that always in stock program going for you?
It's been interesting. Yeah. I mean, we're actually in stock more often than not now on some stuff, but it doesn't, it's been wild.
I gave up about a year and a half ago because I have had about a half a dozen times shit taken out of my cart in the checkout process.
Yeah.
The one I'll never forget
we program it that way.
You, I think, only had, and this was early on. I didn't realize MKC was that new. We must have met each other pretty early on in that journey.
Yeah, like I think we met in 21 maybe.
Yeah, because you put up 6 speed goats that were unique and very special. They were Damascus.
Right.
And I had one of those fuckers in my cart, and it was stolen.
Yeah.
And I was pissed.
People do complain, and I understand why they complain about that, but it's not something we can fix. But I will say, I mean, we're having drops now every week that we do have in stock
Thursday,
knives.
Right?
Yep, Thursday. We've even been doing some Tuesdays. And it's this challenge, right? Like I refuse to take people's money before I can deliver something to them. So like the whole pre-sale idea, we have, as we've been learning as a company, I never wanted to be in a situation where, let's say I took 1,000 people's money pre-sale and said I'm going to deliver them to you July 1st, and something goes wrong in June, and it's like, it's going to be August or September, or now we have to return your money, but we spent it. And
that's how you get a P&L upside down real fast.
And I just would rather, and the other thing with shipping, people are like, why don't you outsource your shipping to somebody else? And it's like, when you buy something on Thursday, at the latest, I want that out as 5 o'clock on Friday, like next day. And if you do buy something in stock at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, it's going out Wednesday. Because nothing drives me nuts more than like ordering something and then you get a shipping confirmation that it shipped 7 days later. Drives me crazy, And I don't. So the whole like getting a knife out there for everybody. The other thing is people are like, why don't you make more knives? And it's like the logistics behind, like when we order steel now in May, those will probably be knives on our website in like January.
I was going to say it's got to be next fiscal year.
Yep, January, February. And so we're always trying to gauge, and how would I have ever known 2 years ago that we'd have the demand and grow? It would have been insane. And then you have to have that money to put all that money out for steel, Hanna material, also have employees and all that stuff, and then have that money ride for 6, 7, 8 months before you're actually turning it into cash. So it's just been that bootstrapping process. And we could have brought on investment. We could have borrowed money. We didn't want to do any of that. And so we did it this way. But it's also allowed us to listen to our customer and adjust and find out what they want. And it's worked out.
Yeah.
The borrowing money thing, that's going to change here shortly. We're getting ready to buy land to build a new facility. And this is where shit gets really real. Because
I told you when you were showing me your facility that wasn't built yet, I said to you, you might as well make plans now for when you outgrow this.
Yeah, you were right. I can't believe how fast. I mean, we've been in that for 15 months, and we're completely tapped.
What do you think you'll do with that when it moves to the next build? What do you think you'll do with that actual space?
I don't really know, because I think we are going to move everything up to that new facility. So, park my tractor in it.
It's a good spot to park a tractor.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
You can park all your cars in there.
Be a nice man cave. The idea behind that building is you could look at that as lost money, but we were going to have to lease a space no matter what.
Yeah.
So there's no lease, commercial lease space available in Missoula at all. I mean, to try to go try to find a 20,000 square foot building, it just doesn't happen, or 10. So, I was able to build that pretty quickly. MKC was able to lease it from me, and that gave us the option to maybe our company didn't grow as fast, and we needed to be there 7 years.
Yeah,
and we weren't going to be tied into some huge debt payment. Now it worked out the other way, that we're going to be moving out of it in 2 years, 3 years, but. That allowed us kind of a careful stepping stone, because anybody starting a small business in their garage, anyone who's doing that in your garage right now, just imagine going out near an exit somewhere and purchasing a piece of land when you're still doing all your own fulfillment in your basement, you're still doing all your own work in your garage, your kids are helping you with your product, whatever that is, if you're building elk calls, that would have been a huge and frankly, reckless step to take, so
what's your timeline for the new building?
We're hoping to break ground this fall. We're hoping to close on it in the next 2 weeks, and then I'm working with the engineers and architect right now. Like I told you, I walked into your coffee shop, and I look at your coffee shop so much differently than I did a year ago.
You're about to write checks, motherfucker.
Yeah. I walked in your bathroom, I'm like, man, this is an expensive bathroom.
It is a very expensive bathroom.
But you look at all the ducting and all the piping and the electric and the engineering we're having to go through right now, meeting with the county officials who have actually been really good. I mean, the thing is I think the county's excited about us because we're losing so much industry in Montana. Pyramid Lumber just closed in Cedar Lake, the lumber mill.
Did it really?
Yep. They're closing it down this summer. They took the last load of logs here a couple weeks ago.
They just couldn't
sustain. It's going to crush that little town. Yep.
God, Sealy Lake is tiny as it is.
Yep. And I think there's 150 employees there. The only thing left is the lake. It's literally going to be a playground for out-of-staters.
There are not industry or jobs there to absorb 150.
In Missoula, we lost Smurfett Stone paper mill. We then lost the Bonner lumber mill.
Where are they going? I mean, it's not like the demand for lumber is any less.
Yeah, taking that stuff out of state to areas, I think areas that are maybe closer centrally located to large population centers. I'm not really sure. And then they just announced they're closing the chipboard plant, though, like white melamine that you make like shelving out of.
Okay.
That huge chip plant. I think there's 300 or 400 employees in Missoula. They just announced last month they're closing that. So a company like ours that's hiring people, we have 56 employees now. I think the county is excited to see a company like ours growing and staying in the valley. The other part of that is, frankly, for these big companies, the cost of real estate in Montana has skyrocketed. And I know from experience, like the guy from Oregon I'm trying to hire, when you bring someone in from out of state and they start looking at the cost of land to buy a house, holy shit, man. Like, it's a challenge.
You think it'll ever go back to the pre-COVID prices? Because that seems to be when it just went on a Elon Musk rocket.
Like a 200% tear, 300%.
Which is great if you were selling.
Yeah. I a year ago, if you'd asked me that, I thought, yeah, because I the interest rates were starting to go up. We knew they were going to go up, and I thought the prices would come down. Now that we are where we are, and I've been having meetings with the county on some of the growth stuff that they're planning on. They're talking 30. They're going to build somewhere around 30,000 homes in the next 30 years out there around that Y area.
In Missoula, on the eastern side?
Yeah, on the west side.
I thought the Y was out. No,
the Y's out west. Yeah. So the point is the amount of people who want or need a home far outpace the building that we're doing. And when you look at these valleys, especially in a place like Montana, you have a river, you have an interstate, you have a railroad track, and then that valley is 3 miles wide, and it's mountains. So the buildable space is actually quite low. And you look at the amount of they're expanding the airport, so now people can work remote. They can fly to Seattle and go to a meeting and fly back home in a day, 2 days.
Yeah.
The amount of people trying to move here escape the policies of LA, San Francisco, wherever, and you can commute to those with a direct flight. I don't see the prices going down at all.
Yeah. I mean, you see it here. In COVID, the prices went through the roof.
That's when you started your podcast up here, too, and you moved up. So, like, you kind of ruined Montana, honestly.
We lived here since 2017. How's that work for your fucking theory?
Well, prices were a lot cheaper in 2017.
Have you ever considered going and fucking yourself? Because you can put that in your pipe and smoke it right there. I had nothing to do with it. But in COVID, the prices went through the roof. A lot of people flooded in. What it seemed like is that construction, like you said, outpaced demand. Now, all throughout Kalispell, they're putting up apartment buildings. But I don't know how people are paying for it
I don't either.
So there is that demand, but there's a gap between what people can pay and what they're charging for it, and I don't know how you bridge that.
So I actually found out.
I can't pay people in the coffee shop $30 an hour, I can tell you that much.
You can't, no. And so somebody really made a good point the other day. A lot of the money buying these homes now is being bought with cash. And it's a way with if you look at it as an investment, you put $1 million in the stock market or you put $1 million in your bank account and you look at the return versus you put $1 million in a home here, and in 5 years, what are you going to get? Because I was saying the other day, I was looking at maybe trying to buy like a rental house. Well, you do the math. You buy a house for $500,000-$600,000 and you have a payment of $3,000 to $5,000 a month. You can't charge that for rent, like to a family. Like, you
could Airbnb it and probably break even.
Maybe, but the point is that's where rent now, being a landlord, you're not necessarily going to get your payment. But what it does do is it kind of knocks that down to where then when you sell that investment in a few years, maybe that tenant's paid 70-80% of the debt on that loan.
Do you have $1 million I can borrow? Because I'll test this.
I wish. Yeah, I wish.
I'll send you some wiring information. Just push it on over. We'll test it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll just write you a
I love
check.
your fucking hypothetical. Yeah, just take $1 million and put it in your checking
That's
account.
the problem, though. That's why. But
what the fuck are we talking about?
But that's why people like my daughter who's 20 years old, it's so defeating because there are people doing that from out of state. They're putting $1 million and buying a house, $600,000-$800,000.
How many people can actually?
How does a kid like you have kids at about the same age as mine, 20 years old? How are they going to buy a house?
They're likely going to have to do what we did growing up. I remember I was talking with my son about this. My oldest, who turns 21 this year, I'm not sure how this has fucking happened. He came over yesterday, and I was looking at him, and after he left, I was chatting with Leah. Because he's got a new job, and he's loving it, and he's working in a field that he enjoys, which is largely at this point like motorcycles and outdoor stuff. It's awesome. He's super happy about it. And he's in between. He was living with his girlfriend. They're moved in with his mom right now, which is awesome that they can do that. They're looking for a place to live. He came over yesterday. I was looking at him. I was like, fuck. I had my Trident when I was his age.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what's
wild.
wilder? The machine gun they gave me and grenades.
Yeah. No shit. That's crazy. That puts it in perspective.
But and then my middle son was like, oh, yeah, well, where did you live? When did you move out of the house? I'm like, 18. He goes, that I'm 18 and I'm not leaving until you kick me out because you pay for everything. I'm like, you're smarter than me. Michael's laughing because he knows Tyler very well. And so he's like, well, how did you do it? I'm like, okay, first I went to boot camp. He's like, well, where'd you stay? I'm like, buddy, at boot camp.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, man, you didn't have like a hotel? I'm like, no. Google Open Bay Barracks when you have some time, Tyler. He's like, okay, what about after that? I'm like, I went to SEAL training. Okay, where'd you stay there? In the barracks at SEAL training. Well, what about after that? I was like, I was at SEAL Team 5. And I shared an apartment with 3 people.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And it was a short-term, shitty apartment. The carpet had probably had a mix of human and dog feces rubbed into it. It just waffle stomped into the fucking threads.
Yeah.
And slowly, like, went from sharing it with 3 people to 2 people, got married at 23, moved out. We're renting a house when we were on the East Coast, bought our first house out there.
Right.
With help of family, like a couple $1,000 here for the down payment and all that. It sucked. It was a struggle. That's the path that they're on. And I think that's the common path for most people.
Yeah.
People are talking about now like it's not possible. It's fucking possible.
Yeah.
I'm at my first Navy paycheck for 2 weeks of work, $800.
Yeah.
Which means I spent $1,000 immediately because I was 18.
Exactly. No, it is possible. But I think it's
we
why
did it. We did it too.
We did. Yeah. But I think it's why we need to see like the support, whether it's our company or some company making, pens or whatever. The only way these people are going to have good jobs is if we actually have good businesses here, right? So American manufacturing of whatever it is, we have to have American business because we see these businesses going away in some of these communities. If you could copy what we're doing in 100 different industries and spread it all across the U.S., that's the only way that people are going to have good, high-paying jobs. People shit on corporations, and I remind people sometimes, Bill and Glenda down the street that have a farm, like they're a corporation. Like they're probably an S Corp. They're probably an LLC. Most small businesses are corporations. And so when you see, people wanting to raise tax rates on corporations and a lot of these rules and a lot of this stuff, and it's like, you got to remember the vast majority of corporations aren't Amazon. It's Andy and Leah with their coffee shop or their jiu-jitsu studio or whatever. And a lot of times you're a corporation because it limits some of the liabilities and that kind of stuff.
That's one of the main reasons. Is there a tax benefit? Sure. I didn't write the tax code.
A little bit.
I didn't write the tax code. I play in it as hard as I can. And I don't blame anybody else for it either.
No. And these rich people that are in Congress have carved out these tax benefits for themselves. And frankly, I keep trying to figure out we're doing something wrong because we're still paying a shit ton in taxes. I keep asking, like, what are we doing wrong here? And the thing is people need to realize if you're buying stuff made overseas, you're not benefiting your local community. The dollars we bring in and pay out to those 56 people, those dollars get spent on Saturday night and on, at the motorcycle shop and at the restaurants and the grocery stores and with the farmers market. The stimulation to your local economy, it's critical. And so the people that like are willing to spend a little bit, our knife is not the cheapest knife out there, right?
It doesn't stop people. We sell the shit out of them at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
I could pull it up on my phone. I think we went through 5 or 6 speed goats Saturday and Sunday combined.
It's awesome. And that makes me feel good because that's also helping your business. I mean, it's this big circle
for people who can't get them online. You got to know the right peeps.
Yeah, come to Kalispell Black Rifle. No, seriously,
it's just an airplane ticket,
whether somebody gets one at RMEF in Missoula and it helps support conservation, or they get one down at Sitka in Bozeman, or at your place in Kalispell. It makes me feel really, really good that like we're a small part of helping somebody else, and obviously they're helping us. It goes both ways. Like it's huge for us to have tourists seeing our knives in your store because not everybody has Instagram. Not everybody sees our website.
Well, what's crazy is that we're not even in tourist season yet. I think we started selling those things in January. And January through probably right now is just normal holding capacity in the valley. You'll get some people who come up for Christmas, New Year's, spring break, stuff like that.
Right.
I don't think we'll be able to keep that knife case full in about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Because
Yeah.
people will come through and not realize. And it's funny you say too about the social media and people not being aware of what's going on. Every day in the store, somebody will walk in from somebody who lives blocks away and say, "Oh, I didn't know you guys were here." It's like, well, we post about it on Instagram.
Right.
There are so many people who are not into that shit.
Yep. We ask, it's one of the most common questions. So we're doing every Total Archery Challenge event on the calendar this year. And one of the things that we ask at every event is, have you heard of our company? And my favorite answer is no, because that tells me we have so much more work to do.
Oh, God.
If you think about a huge company like Yeti, how hard is it for Yeti to move the needle? Right? Like everyone's heard of Yeti. How much dollars in advertising do you have to spend to acquire a new customer? It's a challenge because they're huge. But really in the scheme of things, nobody's heard of Montana Knife Company. In the big picture, we're tiny and we're 3.5 years old. So I love it when we're at a show because it gives us an opportunity to tell somebody about our company. Now they're going to tell a friend. They might not buy a knife there, but they might go home and Google it or see it somewhere and actually click on it. It's my favorite response. And it is hard to reach people because the marketing world is so cluttered. I mean, look at the amount of content. If you don't get on Instagram all day and somebody put up a video at 10 a.m., are you even going to see it?
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, it's just such a busy, cluttered place. And there's so many options: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, list goes on,
I don't have really any interest in any of those.
Yeah. I do Instagram and the rest of them, it's just too much.
I'm on Instagram, but I made a post today about the guest that I just had on. But I realized, and I looked, I'm like, I haven't posted in a week, and it impacted my life 0%.
Yeah.
I like Instagram because I like pictures. It's cool to see what people are putting up there.
It is a cool way to connect. Like when you put stuff up, it's not like I'm calling you every week to see what you're doing or whatever. It is cool to see, Leah off teaching somewhere, or you doing what you're doing, friends and family. That's why I didn't like Facebook, because back to the politics, Facebook felt like it was everybody's opinion. You had to read all this shit. I like Instagram because it's just photos and it's like, here I am doing this or doing that.
Michael, are you on Facebook at all?
No, just Instagram.
So there's a Facebook group up here called Flathead 411. And for anybody up here who lives and listens to the podcast, if you're on this platform and you don't like me talking about it, I don't care. First off, there's basically every post that is made reduces itself to two things. One of them is fucking Californians. It'll be like, hey, this business is closing down or this business is opening up. Fucking Californians, if it's opening up, bringing in shit we don't need if it's closing down. Fucking Californians, cost of living is too high. So it's fucking Californians. The next comment after that is going to be fucking Trump or Biden.
Yeah.
Regardless of what is posted.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
I just scroll. Every once in a while, I'll hop on there. And God damn it, the velocity that it turns to those two things is almost instantaneous.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in arguing about that shit online. Like, honestly, on that Trump post, I deleted a bunch of comments on there.
Pussy.
Just because, I just
so
don't
you believe
want
in
it to
censorship?
turn into a dumpster fire.
So you believe in censorship?
Yeah, I am the dictator.
You're the arbiter of who can express the First Amendment
of
right?
my page. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a piece of shit.
I know. But like even with this whole Californian argument, people moving in thing, I went to a local little community council meeting in Fringetown, and you get people up there screaming, all these people come in and bitching whatever. And the thing is, like, guys, they're coming. Like, we should actually talk about how we're going to plan to deal with it and how we're going to grow in a way that's healthy for the community, because like they're not going to stop coming. And you'll hear people, we shouldn't break up this land, we shouldn't build these houses, but then the next comment will be, housing prices are so high, it's crazy, we need that. Well, if you want
and demand,
it's simple math, man. Like if you don't want high housing prices, you're gonna have to build some houses. If you don't want a skyscraper, well then we're gonna have to chop up that hayfield. Well, if you don't want to chop up that hayfield, you're going to have to build a taller building to house some people. I want to drive by a hayfield and look at baby calves too, but like, shit, but I also understand people that don't want to see a skyscraper in Montana. But
it's also forgotten that the people leaving California are leaving because they're looking for something different than what California has to offer. Probably no longer aligned with either the prices or the politics or the combination of the two. Maybe those, if you want to keep Montana what it is, I hate to tell you, those people are more in line with the ones than the ones deciding to stay. So you're kind of missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, and I don't really like to throw the baby out with the bathwater because we know Californians, obviously, California is fucked up at the moment. But like my neighbor, he bought that piece of ground. He's from California, Dennis down there.
I'm from California.
You are, and you're a terrible human.
I agree.
But he's an awesome neighbor. He's phenomenal. He built this big garden. He tells everybody around him, come eat out of it, take veggies out of it, whatever. It couldn't be a better neighbor. Nicest guy. There's a lot of really good people in California that are tired of the politics. I wish.
Well, people confuse the California politics with San Diego County,
right.
LA County, San Francisco, and Oakland.
Yeah.
Almost everywhere else in California is deeply, deeply red from a political standpoint.
Well, Montana's no different. I mean, you look at downtown Missoula or downtown Bozeman or, Billings, Kalispell, you're going to find a lot of left-leaning people and politics, but you get outside of those downtowns and you're going to find it to be super red. I mean, that map repeats itself across the whole country, Seattle, Washington's no different. Seattle, Olympia, those areas control the politics. Eastern Washington, their voice, and that is the challenge. Like their voice is overrun by 3 neighborhoods in Seattle,
It's rough.
Denver controls Colorado, these huge metropolitan areas. So it is, to me, it's less about, I try to not get too negative or disappointed in it and more of like, what good can you find of it and what can you do to be involved? That's the one thing I see people so involved in talking so much about Ukraine, so much about, Israel, all that stuff. How much time do you see them spending on the news talking about how to fix our inner city or fix our bridges and our roads? And
what do you think that is? Why do you think they focus on the external more than the internal?
I think because the internal is so hard to solve. It's a hard problem. It's easier to throw some money at a problem overseas, and because honestly, if you made me king for a day, I'm not sure how it would fix Chicago or LA. It's a hard problem. Mm-hmm. Homeless people, it's a hard problem. Drugs, it's a hard problem.
Those cities didn't get like that overnight, though.
No,
it's the same thing as people who. I used to see this when I owned a gym. They would come in and they would be at a place where they were morbidly obese. I mean, they looked like they were made out of fucking candle wax. Mm-hmm. And the expectation would be, I'm going to get this taken care of in a couple of weeks. And you got to have really hard conversations with people. Like, how long has it taken to get to this point?
Right.
You should probably expect an equal, perhaps even longer amount of time to work your way out of it.
Sure.
So the fix, I mean, I understand what that word means. I don't know the path. I think it'd be a long, long path to get there.
It would involve our politicians actually working together in an earnest way.
Well, that's not going to happen, sir.
Right. Yeah. And
not given our current structure.
It's sad, but it's true. I was telling Trump Jr., I love like the way that Mike Rowe talks so much about apprenticeships and the trades and whatnot. And if we really wanted to help fix, like, let's say the inner cities, I look at how I was in junior high school age. I wasn't interested in college, and I wasn't interested in school. And
same.
I think a lot of young boys, especially, aren't interested in that kind of stuff. But there's not enough talked about the possibilities, especially today more than ever, in the trades and the businesses that you can build. If you graduate high school and start as a grunt somewhere at 18, by the time you're 20, you're running a small crew. By the time you're 24, you're a foreman on the crew. And by the time you're 30...
You're into 6 figures at that point.
You are. And by the time you're 30, it's probably your company. You've probably started your own company, and you're crushing it. And you've done all of that without any debt or very little debt. And
the opposite of that, the traditional model of let's enter into a predatory lending system where money seems almost free. You can't erase it from your books if you declare bankruptcy. And you get out of it with a degree that at this point in time in the evolution of our society, I'm not so sure it has the value people want it to have.
And you send me your resume as a CEO of MKC, and I graze over your resume, and I go to your social media and actually try to figure out who you are as a human. Like, that's really what I want to see. Like, do you get up in the morning and go hike or go hunt or hang out with your wife and your kids and go coach their softball team? Or what kind of a person are you? Except for a few executive roles or really, more advanced roles, the rest of it, like, we can teach you what you need to know. Like, what kind of a human are you? Are you a motivated person? Do you get out of bed and do shit? I was telling Junior, all that money we sent to Ukraine, and I would love to see like a Trades Act of America where they go and build big empty warehouses in like the inner city, all over the places in the country and in rural areas. Build a huge warehouse in Missoula or Kalispell and put power and water into the side of it. And from there, you bring these kids in. You say, all right, we're going to drop a set of plans. We're going to have a bathroom over there on the other side of the building. We're going to have a kitchen. We're going to need some lights. We're going to need, different things throughout this, maybe some sound system or whatever. And we're going to frame walls from here all the way across there. You're going to have to take the water that's here. You're going to have to plumb all the way across. You're going to have to run wiring all the way across. We're going to do some insulating. We're going to sheetrock it. We're going to mud it, tape it, texture it, paint it, trim it. And at the end of it, that toilet's going to flush. We're going to have a little end of the year party. And at the last week, we're going to demo it all. And it's going to be an empty warehouse at the end of the year. But within that, we're going to teach you 6, 8, 10 trades, the basics to where you can walk out next summer and go to Randy's roof repair and say, I need a job and here's my experience. I did this program. And he's going to put you on the tear off crew and you're going to know just enough to tear off shingles and get going. Mm-hmm. And he's going to pay you $20 an hour because no other kid wants to work. And that would give kids in the inner city real, actual hope. If you're a kid that grew up without a dad, raised by mom or grandma, and your only options that you perceive at the moment are dealing drugs or gangs or whatever, and all of a sudden you see as a sophomore in high school, shit, this framing thing is cool. I like hammering nails into boards, and I'm taken to it. Or like, for some reason, electricity and, being an electrician, really, I take to that. And my teacher showed me like, oh, I can have this little resume we did together, and I can go down to the electrical company in town and ask if they just have a job as a grunt for the summer. That would give them an actual real hope. Like, hey, kids, you're 16 this summer. You could go make $20 an hour and know nothing. All that you learned in this class right here. You also learn skills of someday how to, I built my own knife shop. I did my own septic, foundation work a lot. I did all my own wiring in my shop. I did a lot of that because of stuff I learned as a kid. Those kids later can put those skills to use on their own little apartment that needs refurbished or fixed up. That is actually, I think, would actually give our kids some kind of hope, and you teach them something real that's tangible. The other thing they learn is like, oh shit, I got to add and subtract fractions. This wall is 6 5/16, and I need to add 3/8 to it. I better pay a little bit of attention in basic math. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, to do some pipe fitting, I need to know how to deal with some angles and make these pipes connect. Teach them how to do a little welding. All these things, none of these things you're going to kick out kids fully trained, but they're going to understand, like, I can frame. I know how a basic wall goes together to frame in some bedrooms in an apartment.
Yeah. The ability to go out and work and not be turned off by somebody saying no to you is unbelievable. I watched Tyler do it. He's making, this weekend, he'll do over $1,000 in cash just doing windows. Started his own window business.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
Swindled his grandfather into buying all the ladders and equipment that came with it.
Just cleaning windows?
Just cleaning windows.
Yeah.
Just banking cash.
Yep.
I mean, I look at it and more in awe than anything, because I didn't tell him to go do that. He was just
awesome.
Creatively started his own business. He's got business cards. He knocks on doors. He's looking at trying to hire employees. He found insurance for himself.
If that kid knocked on my door, I'd be like, sure, what the hell? I'll pay a couple $100 to clean all my windows. Like, just because I'd be impressed by the kid.
Yeah.
Like,
And then he's totally lies. He's like, hey, I just cleaned your neighbor's window just down the way, and they recommended that we come over. There's like a standalone home with no other house nearby.
Hey, the art of bullshit is real. It's real. I mean,
he has it too.
We were talking at dinner the other night. Would you rather your kid be 4.0, brilliant kid, near genius, that is awkward as hell and can't talk, or a C student that's one hell of a bullshitter?
I think life's going to reward the C student that's a hell of a bullshitter.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Or maybe not unfortunately. It's just kind of the reality. I need, though, when I go in for brain surgery, I need the autistic 4.0 student.
100%.
But on almost everything else, I need the C student.
No, and there's certain jobs out there. Like my daughter wants to be a veterinarian. She's going to be doing a lot of schooling.
Yeah.
You know, she's going to go to school for a long time. I mean, there's certain jobs that need college, but man, there's a lot of resumes that come across my desk every time we have a job posting, and I'm like, that kid spent 4 years to get that degree, and it means nothing to me as the guy hiring him. You know.
Do you think the educational system will change? Because it seems like the cost continues to go up, and it still is spoken about as the accepted traditional pipeline: high school, college, degree, enter workforce.
Yeah, I think it's already starting to change because even like I look at my oldest daughter doing her online schooling right now, and she's still working basically full time for us. I think the online schooling is already a game changer. You know, I guess if they keep just giving everybody's student loans back, maybe it won't. Maybe people will think that but I think that's really a false sense of security that like, oh, I'm 18 years old, I'm going to go get a student loan right now because Biden's just going to give it back to me in 4 years, or whoever the next president is.
I think he gave back like 10 grand a pop or something like that. Not that that's small money, but I don't think he completely forgave a lot of the loans.
They just gave back a shit ton to art students last week.
Yeah, but the problem is the amount of money owed versus the amount of money they gave back is galactic.
Well, it is. Well, debt as a general rule in our country. I mean, credit card debt right now. That's a scary problem that our country has.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I think that could crash the housing market is if at a certain point that just nationally the debt becomes such a problem that people start getting foreclosed on.
Yeah, like back in 2008.
You drive by people's houses. I still don't understand the math. They buy this house for $650,000-$700,000 that was $300,000 5 years ago, literally. The house I built in 2002 in Frenchtown cost me $180,000, and today that's a $700,000 house in Frenchtown, $650,000.
That's wild.
In
more than that, with all the infrastructure you have on the property now too.
No, I'm talking the first house. You haven't seen it before. Just a typical 1 acre, 4-bedroom, 2-bath kind of typical residential house. And then you drive by and you see what they're spending $600,000-$700,000 on that house, and then they have 2 new vehicles. I mean, a new pickup's now $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. You know, a new Tahoe's $90,000. Holy shit! I don't understand how people are making it.
I agree.
You know, scary.
Yeah. What are you guys working on behind the scenes at MKC? Because you guys have been releasing every Thursday, but when are you going to have a new knife?
Real shortly, here in a few weeks.
What's it called and what are all the details?
Well, we have a war goat coming.
What?
And
who came up with that name?
We have a tactical line coming.
Why? What's the difference between a tactical knife and a hunting knife?
A little bit of the design characteristics about one, how it's carried, two, the intended use for it, right? So like I would be a bit nervous, and we have people doing it, carrying like a speed goat to go deploy to Afghanistan, right? It's a thinner blade. I'd be a bit worried about the
What are you worried about them using?
Most of you military veteran guys are somewhat retarded, right? So you like to
high 90th percentile
pry on shit.
Yeah. So what do you think they're going to use their knife for overseas is my question.
Well,
let me tell you what they're not going to use it for. Knife fights.
Generally, you're right. Yep.
Generally
99.9%.
Even more than
correct.
That. Yeah.
However,
they're going to open MREs.
If I was over there, I would want to know, I mean, scraping on shit, prying on shit, just general use stuff. I don't want somebody halfway across the world to be abusing that knife and snap it. So
Yeah, but every tool has a limitation where it's going to
it does. Yep. And the guy that knows his limitation might decide to carry that speed goat because it's only 1.4 ounces.
Yeah.
But the other guy that knows, hey, I'm going to abuse the shit out of this thing. I'm going to pry on stuff, do whatever. I want something a little bit more robust. He's going to carry something else. There is the perceived and real possibility that you actually could end up with a guy on top of you and you do have to pull that blade out.
Stop listening to every story that people tell you.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to be common, but
I am saying it's not going to be common.
Well,
I'm saying every person who has told you that story is full of shit.
No, I'm not. So I'm not a veteran. I wasn't there, and I do believe 99.9% of those knives. I don't want one of our knives to end up in a person because that means a lot of other shit went wrong to put that person in that position.
Yeah. Plus, the tip will probably break, if you know what I mean.
But no, we are doing our tactical line. I'm really excited about.
So the War Goat. What else you got?
We got a V24, which is actually a kind of a redesign of the famous V42 dagger that was around the Devil's Brigade, the first special operations, kind of where Special Forces was born, actually in the state of Montana. I'm looking forward to telling that story and having some people tell that story that know it really well. Where they combined troops out of Helena, Montana, and out of Canada to combine the first Special Forces. That was V for Victory in 1942.
Hell yeah.
And so V24, 2024. But that knife, frankly, wasn't designed to be carried very easily. I mean, it's a little bit impractical.
Yeah.
To your point, it's long, it's pointy. A lot of them did break. We've done some redesigns to that to make it actually where if you want to carry a dagger, you can. It's not going to be some cumbersome, stupid thing. We did, to the point of what you're saying, I went and spent a bunch of time with, down at Hat Creek training, a bunch of Special Forces snipers from all different branches. They were actually competing against each other at a really cool event. Brian Morgan puts that on. They do a lot of high-angle, cross-canyon shooting. It's unbelievable. I got to just be there and watch them. And we actually took a bunch of prototypes and showed those around and went back from there and made a bunch of changes based on what they say. A lot of it is how they carry them. Where on their kit do they carry them? Every guy's different.
I was going to say, good luck getting a consensus on that.
That's one thing I learned.
Yeah.
Early on, I would ask guys like, hey, Green Beret, what's your perfect knife? And I thought 10 Green Berets would all say the same thing.
No, you're going to get 30 answers from 10 guys.
Yes. But it does excite me to think that like our knives could be being carried by our current military members. Like
they already are. I guarantee you they already are.
Some of them are for sure. But I think there's some things that we could do to design in some features that would make them even more applicable for those scenarios. I had a kid ask me at a high school when I was doing a talk there, like, I've met Rogan and met all these different people, and he's like, who do you want to make a knife for the most? Like, what celebrity or whatever? And I was like, I mean, I've met some cool people like you have, and I was like, honestly, every single military member. Like, to know that our knives, that they would trust that as a piece of their gear to go deploy and potentially have their life depend on it, or at least maybe they pull it out and they're whittling a stick and they're somewhere across the world and they're just thinking about elk hunting in Montana, and they pull that knife out and they know that people that made it believe in them, stand behind our military, Yeah. So super excited about the tactical stuff. We're going to be doing a lot more culinary stuff. We're going in stock on our culinary knives in 2 weeks.
Bullshit.
We're going to try.
Bullshit.
We got butcher knives coming this year.
Butcher knives. Is that like the cleaver?
Well, no, more like a boning knife and like breaking knife for breaking down.
Why can't I think of a fucking butcher knife in my head right now?
They're just bigger. Like the way you watch those guys work, the way they cut up, like you got a whole beef hanging on a rail. Yeah. And they're going to cut off maybe a big section of it, like a whole quarter.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, those blades are
longer,
crazy.
Thinner. Yeah. And there's I've been working with some with the bearded butchers on specific design stuff, because those frankly nobody uses knives more than butchers. I mean, that's their tool in their hand, outside of maybe like fishermen. Alaska salmon fishing people, stuff like that, cod. So we're spending a lot of time trying to get those butcher knives. It's a lot like the military stuff. We're trying to work with the people that are really actually using them the most to help us with the design.
Yeah.
I'm not a butcher. I'm not a former SEAL or unit guy or whatever, and don't pretend to be. So we're just trying to ask a lot of questions. And honestly, it's going to take probably a lot of knives to hit different areas because, to your point, one SEAL wants this and the next SEAL wants that. And so over time, we might have to have a few knives for those people.
It's the worst problems to have.
Yeah.
The culinary stuff is cool.
Yeah.
I was wondering if people were going to buy those at the shop, just given the price point. There was no issue with it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
No.
And I think it's people appreciate the fact that they can send them back to us to sharpen. How many culinary knife companies that, like, where you buy culinary knives in Target, how many of those people can you send those knives back to sharpen?
I have no idea.
Yeah, none.
I'm assuming I was going to.
Most of them are overseas.
Yeah.
And so we're actually really proud of that. Like any of our knives, you send it back to us, we'll sharpen it for free, rewrap it, do whatever we need to get it right. I actually really enjoy that, seeing the way the knives come in, what conditions they come in.
I bet you get some real shit shows.
We do. Yeah. And honestly, some really cool letters.
I was going to say, do they come with notes about how the condition arrived?
Yeah. And some of it's really, really cool. And just the experiences people have had about where they, I took my boy out on this trip or my daughter, and or where they got the knife from. Like they didn't buy it. It was given to them, which is really cool.
That is cool, actually.
I love that stuff. We get DMs of pictures all the time of it's really, really special when someone decides to take your knife on like the biggest hunt of their lifetime, or they decide to give it as groomsmen gifts in their wedding. Like there's a lot of meaning behind that stuff. It's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
The new building project's awesome. We're actually buying the Stockyard property in Missoula. There's been a bunch of rumors about that we're it's kind of been a little bit of a PR thing of like, oh, this knife company's buying the stockyards and closing it down. It's where they sell cattle.
Okay.
So the ranchers bring their cattle in, sell them. They can buy cattle. And I think it's actually going to be really cool because we're actually keeping the stockyard in a way open. You're not going to be able to buy and sell cattle there. The ranchers will be able to drop cattle off, and they're going to be transferred to the Ramsey stockyards in Butte. But it was really important to us because any out-of-stater that would have bought that land, they'd have just leveled everything. It's interstate frontage. It's too valuable. It doesn't pay to have it be a stockyard, frankly. We're going to build our building way off to the northwest, and we're going to leave that open so ranchers can come in twice a week and drop their cattle off, and they'll be trucked right back out. Even my own daughter sold her 4-H heifer there.
Why do they do that intermediate stop? Why don't they just truck it to Butte?
That was the concern with the ranchers originally, is if we just wiped it out, now you have to haul your cattle all the way to Butte, 2 hours and drive back. So you have a bunch of diesel involved in that, the logistics. And there's already not great margins in farming and ranching. So a lot of these people don't have semi-load. If you have semi-loads of cattle, you'll ship them maybe even further to go to a place that you think is going to get the best price per pound on the hoof. But for most of the ranchers around here that have 20, 30, 50 head maybe, you're talking a few stock trailers full.
Yeah.
That adds, for the price of diesel, a bunch of money to go and do that. And so I think that's going to be cool. We're going to use some of the stockyard boards in our new building as kind of accent walls. And I think it'll be cool because we're going to be still on that property, but still keep the original business somewhat going.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
How big is Hank now?
He's huge. Yeah. I think
He was huge the last time I saw him.
6'4", 6'4.5". Just turned 16 2 days ago.
What pro team is he playing for?
He's a hell of a player.
He's just fucking massive.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's like 220 pounds, 215. He is working out like an absolute fiend. He's before school, after school. He's pretty motivated because like the big senior basketball player graduated this year, and Hank's now kind of really going to need to fill some big shoes. He'll have his.
There might be other reasons
struggles.
why he's working out so hard at that age. You know.
Yeah.
I can't think of any off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
me neither. What you're talking about? No. Yeah.
Yeah. Have fun with that age group.
No.
Hey, actually, you've already been through it.
Honestly, my kids are, I really believe with parenting, if you do it right from 0 to 5, the rest of the time, a lot of it's just like little tweaks. But man, if you wait too long and they're 13 and you decide you're going to put your foot down, good luck. My kids, frankly, they're not perfect, but they're kind of on cruise control. They kind of tell me where I need to be and when. And
That's good.
Sadie, my daughter, she's graduating. She got a full ride scholarship for basketball, and she's their salutatorian. So she's graduating in 2 weeks. So pretty proud of her.
No calls from the cops at all about your kids?
No, not yet.
God, you are boring.
It's
What kind of
true.
life you guys living down there in Frenchtown? We got to blow it out.
Yeah, trying to. Well, we when Donald Trump Jr. when we shot the bowling ball cannon, that raised a few red flags on social media. People
All right.
don't understand the kind of freedoms we have in Montana.
I think you can shoot a
Sometimes.
cannon in California. Like not in L.A.
Not with a projectile in it.
Sure you can. On private property? I bet you can do whatever the fuck you
Well,
want.
it goes a mile and a half.
Well, obviously we're
You'd have to
billionaires
have
in this
some land.
scenario.
It would be fun to shoot it out into the ocean, like if you had beachfront.
I think you'd have to get it past, like, what is it, 12 and a half miles for international water. I think you might get talked to for that. But I feel like if you had enough private land, they'd let you shoot a cannon in California. Probably not in Washington, D.C., though.
I don't know. A pound of black powder in California? Shit, you can hardly.
Michael, can you shoot a fucking cannon in California? I was going to say, get on this. I think you can. That's my bet. If you have private property.
Yeah,
Who's going to stop you? You can have guns in California.
kinda.
I mean, there are some bizarre
I'm
legislative
not sure you
rules.
can buy black powder in California, can you? By the pound?
I never thought about
See
that.
what
I don't know.
You need to have more fun. We could should mount some cannons or some kind of guns to your helicopter. Are you going to get a
Already
Blackhawk
thought
like
about it. No. Like Heavy D? No.
Yeah.
I'm not. I would like to fly around in this Blackhawk with him. Or can fuck yeah.
look at this.
So I highlighted what I think would be the most important.
God damn it.
Oh, and
If
then
your
it may
device is
not
powered
actually
by the
expel.
force of an explosion, black powder, then it may not actually expel a projectile.
Bam. Communist state.
I guess.
What made you think you could shoot a projectile in California out of a cannon?
Because I would do it and just assume that it was okay and have to deal with the consequences.
It can't even shoot golf balls. Mine shoots a bowling ball over a mile.
I love the first sentence. Have you ever thought about building a cannon in your garage? Me too. Never mind why.
We could be friends.
All right, fine. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this pen?
Yeah, we're dropping those tomorrow. I don't know when this podcast is going to drop, but we're dropping
Monday,
those
week from today.
Week from today.
So these will be sold out by
those
then.
Well, maybe. I hope. But
It's very on brand
yeah,
for MKC.
Tactile turns, cool American-made company make pens. We did a little collab with them. That's titanium bolt action.
Do they get ink from the United States, or is this overseas?
Hell if I know.
Fucking communist
I don't
ink?
know. They squeeze eels. I don't
You
know.
over there, just like American made. Come to find out, they're probably orphan, like rare ink animal that they're torturing.
I think
somewhere overseas.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah,
It's that kind of company you support, MKC. It's unfucking believable.
Yeah, we squeeze some rare turtle or something that makes ink.
The thing is, I like a hefty pen
Yeah,
in my
they're
hand,
pretty
you know what
cool.
I mean? Little friction, little.
Yeah,
Michael's over there, just like, Jesus, where's this going?
I think it's fun collabing. Like this week, we're dropping bino harnesses with marsupial gear. It's just like I think it's fun combining, forces with other companies that are doing stuff in the U.S. Kafaru and
Is Brandon behind the scenes thinking of these good ideas?
Brandon thinks. Yeah, most of this shit.
I was
up.
going to say, I just didn't really think you were.
A
capable
lot of it honestly comes to us. Like, people come to us. I had a guy come to us last weekend, and I don't want to say what because I don't want it to get stolen by another company. But people come to us now wanting to collab with us just
that's
because
cool
we've
spot.
kind of set that standard.
This is cool.
And it's a great way to share. A lot of us have. It's like with Black Rifle. A lot of us share the similar kind of customer. Have similar values, and
The Venn diagram overlap is pretty broad, I would say.
it is, yeah. So it's I don't know. It's cool to combine forces, and that's the thing with what Benchmade did to us. I mean, I would love to collab actually, even with other. We've done it before, like with Half Face. I think it'd be cool to collab with other knife companies here and there. Like, I don't think we need to really beat each other up and shit. I think it's like root each other on. And frankly, it's hard enough to do in this country. We should be working together.
I feel sad for people that can't celebrate others' successes.
Yeah.
It's as if, and this is an assumption on my part, it's as if they view somebody else's success as somehow somehow perceived negatively as their own self-worth or their own ability.
Yeah.
I legitimately am happy when other people succeed. I think it's
Same.
awesome.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
What Evan did with Black Rifle and Matt and JT and all those guys, Logan, when I was a lineman and I was thinking of starting this, that was so inspiring. Like, to see, I mean, Evan's just a little midget from Idaho.
Yeah.
And
He's a micro SF.
yeah. And he started a coffee company that literally dropped a flag of a rifle on in New York on Wall Street. How freaking amazing is that? And that's the thing, like the hate that like Evan sometimes get and Black Rifle get from our own people, our own, whether it's your crew with the, or your veteran community, or it's my right leaning conservative community, and the hate that I see like Black Rifle and Evan get, largely all because they're successful. You didn't see that hate 5-6 years ago.
No, it was when they got success and were rewarded for that success.
The hate
People
came.
leapt from the ceiling.
And I think instead it shows that it is possible. If you heard somebody 6-7 years ago say, I'm going to start a coffee company in, wherever he was at the time, Seattle or wherever he started in his basement.
Evan?
Yeah.
I can see him in Seattle wearing nothing but like a leather apron and just roasting coffee.
I think he was for a little time in his basement or something in
Probably.
Seattle. But to start that in Idaho or Seattle or Salt Lake, wherever it was, and to say, I'm going to go public and hang a rifle on Wall Street, everyone would be like, you're insane, but if you do it, we'll be the biggest fan of you. And he goes and does it, and then people talk shit.
Yeah.
It should show everyone else that, hey, if you're working some day job, or like with what we're doing with Montana Knife Company, we're nowhere near done. I'm freaking still making knives on my home property. Like, we have so far to go. That's the thing I think sometimes people need to realize with us, and it's why it's hard sometimes to like celebrate where we've come, because like it feels daunting of where we still need to go.
Yeah.
To even be on our own piece of property. I mean, I own the land we're on. So like, to have our own building and make knives in our own building is a huge leap for us over the next 2 years. To see what Evan did, that kind of stuff, what we're doing, what you've done with a podcast, just starting a podcast up, it should show people that are working day jobs somewhere that have a dream, whether they're making watches or they're making elk calls, pent, they're turning freaking titanium pens. It should show people that like it's possible if you get after it,
I think so. When are you going to be back up here? With Tulsi in June, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Tulsi's coming. We're doing that SIG event down in Bozeman. The ARC games, it's rifle, pistol, shotgun, archery competition, and SIG's putting that on, and they asked me to put together a team. So Tulsi Gabbard's doing it, and Bo Nickel with me.
Sweet.
And we're going to compete against other brands. And it's cool because SIG is putting up $50,000. So whoever wins that, they're going to donate $50,000 to your charity, your choice. So we chose Heroes and Horses here in Montana.
Hell yeah. With Micah?
Yep, Micah Fink.
Yep.
Veteran.
He has
group.
got a dick broom that is just to die for.
Oh, what? Oh, his dick broom, yes.
Yeah. It is fucking Wyatt Earp legendary.
It is. It's quite impressive.
It's glorious, really.
It is.
All right. Well, I'm going to get you back down to Missoula. It's almost 5, so I promise I'd get you out of here soon enough. But yeah, come back up on the 10th. I'm going to sit down. I was talking with Tulsi not too long ago. She's going to do a book signing at the coffee shop.
Yep.
A little podcast action. And then, you guys can go get your clocks cleaned at the SIG event.
She's going to carry the team. She's kind of a badass. What do you think of her? Do you think Trump will choose her as a VP?
So I don't know her at all. I've talked to her on the phone. We've texted back and forth a little bit. A huge circle of mutual friends. It's surprising to me our paths haven't crossed. I don't know I don't know what Trump is going to do. I like Trump's policies a lot more than I like Biden's policies. I have issue with the way he presents himself as a leader. I think there is probably a lot of benefit. It's with, like, you know what I mean, with everybody. There's no person he's going to pick and they're going to be like, that's it. That's the one. It's going to be pros and cons for whoever. I like the fact she openly talks about the party that she was involved with and why she left and what her view of politics, which is what I want to talk to her about.
Yeah.
I don't personally believe that our political system will survive unless we have massive sweeping changes put in. Term limits for one. I would limit the ability of politicians to be able to invest and just focus on their own net worth as opposed to the people there. We have to have single issue bills instead of shit that's fucking balled together.
Exactly.
We should probably talk about the size of the government. We should probably talk a little bit about the number of GS employees that are just in the government at all times, regardless of administration that's coming in. I don't know what's going to happen if we don't start addressing some of those things. But we have to start by talking about what is actually happening in those systems, and I appreciate that she does that.
What I also appreciate, she had her kind of somewhat anti-2A views in her past when she was younger. But when you talk to her and you listen to her, and actually she did a podcast of her own with Steve Scalise, one of the senators that was shot in Washington at that softball game deal several years ago.
Yeah. It was like the congressional softball game, right?
Yep.
That was not a high-scoring game.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
I'm going to say underhanded pitching.
Probably so, yeah, with a really soft ball. But she, it makes sense. Like, she grew up in an anti-gun state, largely, of Hawaii, with parents who didn't have guns and know anything about that. And she grew up a kid with those views. And then as she went into the military and then as her time in Congress, she started seeing the other side of the story, and over time, and she started seeing what a lot of the right was saying, which was, hey, we have guns because we have to be able to defend ourselves against our own government overreach. And then she started seeing things where government was overreaching and unlawful search and seizure and stuff like that. And over time, she changed her opinion to be pro-2A, pro-gun through her experience over 30 years. That's what we need our politicians to do. And she admits it and talks about it. Like, this is what I thought and this is what I think now and here's why. I saw a good quote from a guy that said on one of her posts, a guy was like, yeah, but her gun policy, she used to think this. And he's like, yeah, well, we all used to shit our pants too, and now we don't.
Yeah.
Like, we evolve as humans.
Well, another one of the issues with the modern day political system is you're either completely in line with your political party or you're fucking on the outs.
Yeah, or you're a piece of shit.
It's like...
Yep.
I have, and it's the same issue I have with things I see on social media. The social media world that I see, and maybe this is based off of the way that I interact with my device, right? Because it does, if you even pause on a picture, shit's learning. So for all you out there who are like zooming in on the yoga pants of fucking people, your feed knows what you're checking out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why your feed is full of yoga pants.
Yeah.
In Michael's
Which, thank
case,
God for yoga pants, by the way.
In Michael's case, it's dude with short shorts, but whatever you're into, the algorithm learns. It's what I see on social media is not reinforced with what I see in real life.
Right.
I see people who have so much in common.
Yep.
On both sides of the spectrum. They are living completely fucking fine in mixed communities with mixed values.
Right.
If you took what I see on my phone at face value, you would think that the world is literally burning right now. And I'm not saying it's not in some areas, but I think we're doing better than the stories that we believe are telling ourselves.
It'd be like, social media would be the equivalent of me showing up to my daughter's softball game tonight and seeing one of the parents pull in with a Biden sticker, and when they walk over to the stands and sit next to me, I go, "You're a fucking piece of shit," to their face, instead of like, "Hey, Bill, how was your day today?" Which is what normal people say,
Yeah.
And you have your differences. You and I may not agree on abortion. Is abortion literally the pill? Is abortion a couple weeks later, a month later, 3 months later? What is appropriate gun control? What is appropriate background checks, and for who? And, there's no right answer to any of this stuff. It's a discussion of which we have to somehow come to an agreeable compromise. as a nation. But that's why I feel like we yell and scream about stuff overseas and we ignore our own bullshit, because it's easy to ignore your own shit in your own house. If you and Leah get in an argument and whatnot, and you can...
Which we never do. It's a perfect relationship.
Yeah, well...
I'm contractually obligated to say that.
I mean, I know she's a difficult person, but you're so easy to get along with.
I fucking agree. Do you know how many times I've had to tell her that?
Yeah. I mean, she's tough. Leah is tough to be around. Yeah, so hard.
Fucking biggest fucking sweetheart on the face of planet Earth.
Yeah, she is. But it's easy. It's easier to look at everyone else's problems, and I feel like we do that even with our own homes. Like, oh, look at the neighbors, they're doing that, or why are they doing that, or that's stupid. You're ignoring your own problems in your own house. It's easy to ignore your own problems in your own community. Oh, our county and our community is so great, but that one over there is fucked up. Your own state, Montana's great. California's stupid. Your own country, our country's great. Let's worry about, what Afghanistan's doing. It's hard to solve your own problems.
I agree. But we need to, though.
And that's where I do think Tulsi... I think, to your point, I think she attracts the people who Trump actually needs, which are the people who maybe aren't a huge fan of how his demeanor is or how he leads, but are maybe a fan of his policy, but maybe don't want to vote for the person.
He's his own worst enemy, unfortunately. Let's be honest, we all are our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be an interesting choice. When would he have to declare that? I know very little about the rules.
Yeah, I think the convention's in July, and typically they've done that. Historically, I think it was done more like on the last day of the convention, but I think that's started to become more and more of an earlier process, like going
so we're
into the
inside
convention.
Of 90 days, then,
yeah,
probably.
For sure.
Okay.
I mean, there's a good chance, quite honestly, when I asked her to do that deal, and I got to say, I mean, I called her. I'd never talked to her in my life. I DM'd her, and I said, hey, it's the deal.
Into her DMs, you're a piece of shit.
I did. And she hit me right back because I am so good looking. And
opinions may vary.
She called me and I was like, hey, here's what's going on with SIG, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I'm all for it. I'll be there.
Right on.
And but she did say, well, we talked about like if she actually happened to get selected, she might have to bail.
No, just bring your Secret Service buddies.
I asked her, I said, what is it like knowing at some point in the next 90 days you're going to get a call and it's either grab your surfboard and go surfing, like you're free to like do whatever, you're not, or you're the vice presidential candidate pick and your life is about to just completely turn upside down. It's wild. It's a wild phone call, like
I guess.
Dichotomy.
Indeed. What do you want to close out with? Get you back on the road.
Man, I appreciate like specifically, and I'm not just trying to
don't end
below you here.
Gay note, okay?
Yeah, I'm going to get gay with you.
Let's make eye contact with Michael.
I'm going to stare at you in the eyes. No,
you'll see his head raise up just over the monitor.
The support from your listenership, the Cleared Hot podcast, your fans, the podcasts I've done on here before, like, man, it's incredible, the support that we've had. So I really appreciate the platform to talk and appreciate being friends with you, Leah mostly. But
it's fair.
Man, I encourage people to keep supporting small businesses that are trying to do things here in America, and not just ours, but like all over the country. If you can afford to spend a little bit more on homegrown beef, the farmer's market, goods and products and stuff that are being made in your communities, the only way we're really going to be able to build a solid economy across our nation is to do it locally. Get involved in your local school boards, get involved in your local politics. Like, us screaming about Ukraine and whatever and blah, 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 like, get involved in your own communities.
Yeah, you can actually have an impact there.
You can. And
in the aggregate, you can have an impact on those bigger issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't ignore your backyard while you're screaming at the ocean trying to change the tide.
Yeah, I agree. So no, I appreciate the support people have shown for our company it's mind-boggling. I'm honored, so.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Next time I see you, I'll probably be landing a helicopter at your shop. It's not a big deal. We'll put the test run. We'll put the
let's
knives.
Not crash land it. Let's come in soft.
Test run. We'll put just the knives in for the first trip. Maybe the second trip you can come with me.